Hey there everybody, welcome back to Seniors Life Hacks, the show where we make life a little bit easier, a little bit more fun and a whole lot more memorable. And speaking of memorable, today we're taking a trip down memory lane to the grooviest decades of them all, the 1960s and the 1970s. Now, if you're a boomer like me or even a hip Gen Xer, you know these decades weren't just about peace signs and disco balls, so get ready to relive the trends, gadgets and experiences that shaped our generation. We're talking vinyl records, rotary phones, drive-in movies and so much more. Now let's start with something near and dear to all of us music lovers, vinyl records. Remember those big, beautiful discs with their colourful labels and that unmistakable crackling sound? You'd carefully place the needle on the record and boom! The music would fill the room, rich and warm, nothing like those tinny digital files kids listen to these days. We're talking about real music, folks, the kind you could hold in your hands, admire the album art and really get lost in. We'd spend hours at the record store, flipping through albums, debating the merits of the Beatles versus the Rolling Stones. And remember those album covers? They were practically works of art themselves. The Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon. They weren't just albums, they were cultural icons. And let's not forget the ritual of carefully cleaning the record before playing it, making sure not to get any fingerprints on the grooves. Vinyl records, a true testament to the power of music. Next up, let's dial it back to a time before smartphones, before touchscreens, even before push-button phones. That's right, folks, we're talking about the one and only rotary phone. Remember that satisfying click as you dialed each number, the anticipation building with every rotation? And you had to know the number by heart, no scrolling through contacts for us. But there was a certain charm to it, wasn't there? A simplicity that's hard to find in today's hyper-connected world. Conversations seemed to matter more when you had to put in the effort to dial each number. And let's not forget the iconic design, that sturdy base, the curved receiver. It was a fixture in every home, a symbol of connection and communication. Kids these days with their smartphones will never know the simple pleasure of slamming down that receiver after a particularly satisfying phone call. All right, folks, time to rewind even further back to those glorious Saturday mornings. Remember those days? You'd wake up early, pour yourself a big bowl of sugary cereal and plop down in front of the television for hours of non-stop cartoon fun. We're talking Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Roadrunner, Wile E. Coyote, the list goes on and on. Remember the anticipation building as the theme music started? You knew you were in for a treat, a wild ride filled with slapstick humour, witty dialogue and characters that felt like family. And the best part, no homework, no chores, just pure, unadulterated cartoon bliss. It was a time to let your imagination run wild, to escape into a world where anything was possible. Those Saturday morning cartoons weren't just entertainment, they were a rite of passage, a shared experience that brought families together. Chapter 4. Groovy Fashion. Now let's talk fashion. And specifically the trends that defined the 60s and 70s. We're talking bell-bottom jeans, tie-dye shirts, platform shoes, and of course, those iconic peace signs. It was a time to express yourself, to break free from the constraints of the past and embrace a new era of individuality. Remember how those bell-bottoms swayed as you walked, how the tie-dye swirled with every movement? It was like wearing your personality on your sleeve, or in this case, your pants and shirts. We experimented with colours, textures and styles, pushing the boundaries of what was considered fashionable. And you know what? We rocked those looks with confidence and style. Chapter 5. Drive-in memories. All right, folks, buckle up and get ready for a trip to the drive-in. Remember those magical nights? Piled into the family car, popcorn in hand, waiting for the sun to set and the movie to begin. There was something special about watching a movie under the stars, the cool night air, the sound of crickets chirping in the background. It was an experience, an event, not just a trip to the theatre. We'd arrive early to claim our spot, spread out blankets and pillows, and maybe even toss a frisbee around while we waited for the show to start. And the best part? You could talk during the movie. No need to worry about shushing noisy neighbours or missing a line because someone was munching on popcorn too loudly. Those drive-in theatres may be mostly a thing of the past, but the memories we made there will last a lifetime. Chapter 6. Cruisin' in Style. Speaking of driving, let's talk about the cars that ruled the roads in the 60s and 70s. We're talking about classic beauties like the Ford Mustang, the Chevrolet Corvette, the Volkswagen Beetle, each one a symbol of freedom, style, and the open road. Remember the feeling of cruising down the highway, the wind in your hair, the radio blasting your favorite tunes? It was more than just driving, it was an experience, a way of life. These cars weren't just modes of transportation, they were extensions of our personalities. Those classic cars weren't just vehicles, they were icons, representing an era of optimism, innovation, and the thrill of the open road. Chapter 7. Black and White Memories. Now, let's dim the lights and tune into the world of black and white television. Before there was colour, before there was cable, there were those iconic shows that captivated audiences with their wit, charm, and timeless appeal. We're talking about shows like I Love Lucy, The Honeymooners, The Twilight Zone, programs that transported us to different worlds, made us laugh, made us think, and sometimes even kept us up at night. Remember gathering around the television set with your family, the glow of the screen illuminating your faces as you got lost in the stories unfolding before your eyes. It was a shared experience, a time to bond over the antics of Lucy Ricardo or the thought-provoking tales of The Twilight Zone. And the actors, Lucille Ball, Jackie Gleason, Rod Serling, they weren't just actors, they were icons, legends who brought their characters to life with such passion and authenticity that we couldn't help but be drawn into their world. Those black and white shows may seem like relics of a bygone era, but their impact on entertainment and our collective memory is undeniable. Chapter 8. The Lost Art of Letters. In today's world of instant communication, it's easy to forget the simple joy of putting pen to paper. But back in the 60s and 70s, handwritten letters and postcards were the primary way to stay in touch with loved ones far away. Remember the excitement of receiving a letter in the mail? That tangible connection to someone you cared about. You'd carefully open the envelope, unfold the paper, and savor every word, every carefully crafted sentence. And the handwriting, each letter unique, a reflection of the writer's personality. It was like receiving a little piece of them, a tangible expression of their thoughts and feelings. And in a world that often feels rushed and impersonal, it's a lost art worth remembering. Chapter 9. The Great Outdoors. Now, let's step outside for a moment and reminisce about the days when playing outside wasn't just an activity, it was a way of life. Remember those long summer days, spent exploring your neighbourhood, building forts, riding bikes and playing games with your friends until the streetlights came on? There were no smartphones, no video games, no internet to distract us, just pure, unadulterated fun under the sun. It was a time for adventure, for discovery, and for making memories that would last a lifetime. Chapter 10. The Spirit of Community. And finally, let's talk about the sense of community that permeated the 60s and 70s. Back then, neighbours knew each other by name, looked out for one another, and came together for block parties, barbecues, and just to chat over the fence. Remember those neighbourhood gatherings, the smell of burgers and hot dogs grilling on the barbecue, the sound of laughter and conversation filling the air. It was a time to connect with the people who lived around you, to build relationships and to create a sense of belonging. We'd share stories, recipes and laughter, creating a tapestry of shared experiences that strengthened the bonds of community. It was a reminder that we're all in this together and that sometimes the best things in life are the simplest ones, like sharing a meal and a laugh with the people who live around us. Outro. Thanks for the memories. Well, folks, there you have it. A nostalgic journey back to the unforgettable decades of the 1960s and 1970s, from vinyl records to rotary phones, from Saturday morning cartoons to neighborhood block parties. We've relived some of the trends, gadgets and experiences that shaped our generation. So, the next time you're feeling nostalgic, take a moment to remember those simpler times, those shared experiences, and the people who made those decades so special. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more seniors life hacks.